Greetings, peeps. Hope you're doing well. Let's get right into it today. I just recorded like a 20-minute rant about current American politics, and then I cut it because I was like, you know what? People came here for Death in Vegas. I'm going to talk about Death in Vegas. I know plenty of you in my audience wish that I would include ranting. I know you enjoy it, but I don't want to be clickbait and corner people into what they think is Death in Vegas and then have to put up with me for 20 minutes ranting and raving about something completely unrelated. So I'm going to get right into Death in Vegas and Richard Fearless. Thank you very much for coming by. He has a new album out called Death Mask, and I think it's excellent. And this will be about Death Mask, but first I want to preface my Death Mask thoughts with what I think about Richard Fearless in general. I have been a fan of Richard Fearless for a very long time, almost 30 years now. His first album has been out almost 30 years. Dead Elvis. You guys remember that one? And when did that come out? 97? 97, 98? I mean, it's been out for almost 30 years, okay? Dead Elvis was a cool record. It was not my favorite at the time, but I still enjoyed it. I just felt like it was, well, it wasn't exactly what I thought it would be. I thought it would be just wall to wall big beat or whatever. And it had some big beaty moments, but then it had plenty of moments that weren't big beaty. In fact, there was some techno on it and some krautrock elements, and there was a lot of shit going on. And I appreciated that. A few years later, he came out with the Contino Sessions, which I thought was excellent. Love that album and the singles that came from it and the remixes and very strong album. Really love that record. It had God, I've listened to Contino Sessions so much over the years. I mean, it had the same kind of vibe, maybe some big beaty moments, but psychedelics worked its way in there. There was techno, there was funk, Iggy Pop showed up. Right? Was that on Iggy Pop or was that Scorpio Rising? Oh my God. See, it's been a long time. Contino Sessions, I think, came out in 1999, but I think there was a single called Aisha, and I'm pretty sure that came out on Contino Sessions. In fact, yes, I know it did. That was late 90s. That was something he did. He brought in other artists to sing. Dot Allison was another one from One Dove. In fact, didn't they date? Didn't Richard Fearless and Dot Allison hook up, which makes total sense? Love me some Dot Allison. Contino Sessions was an excellent album. Then a few years after that, he did Scorpio Rising, which had the great single Hands Around My Throat. What a great song. I think that's when he had Paul Weller from the Jam step in. I think Liam Gallagher was on that record too, right? From Oasis. I liked that music. I could have done without the more psychedelic rock tunes with the vocal stuff. I've always preferred his techno music and his ambient music and his experimental instrumental electronic music. It's just a preference. I didn't dislike the vocal stuff, but I always wish that he put out an album that was just him, electronics, you know what I mean? That's what he's really good at. Well, he answered my call, and what was it, 2004 was Satan's Circus. To this day, I think Satan's Circus is my favorite Death in Vegas album. It's just a lot of music, and he really focused on techno and electronic stuff, but it was very krautrocky at the same time, very rhythmic, really cool stuff. He shied away from the vocal stuff. It was very much a Richard Fearless album, and he's kind of been doing that vibe ever since. For the past 2 decades. That's what he's done. He's put out a few other albums since. I think it was called Trans Love Energies, right? Trans Love Energies, which was a very ambient album. Excellent record. And then Transmission, which came out, God, I feel like it's been a decade now. 2016, maybe. Transmission was an excellent album, which brings us to the new album. Almost a decade later, he comes out with Death Mask. I am happy to report that Death Mask is excellent. It's wall to wall. It's techno at its heart. This is a straight up, full on techno record. And I love that. There are no vocals, no distractions. It's all Richard Fearless all the time doing techno all the time. But he also throws that psychedelic vibe in there. There's some ambience, there's some harshness in the sound, some experimental vibes too, even industrial vibes. That's something that he's always flirted with his music. And I think I'm going to put this in the title of the video, but I hate genres. And those of you who watch my channel with regularity, I dislike any sloppy genre tags. But those of you who like industrial or even dark wave, whatever you want to call it, I really do not like the term dark wave, but you guys know what I mean when someone says that word, you automatically envision something in your head. If you like dark wave and if you like techno, you have found a very good record to sink your teeth into. It has all of these elements. I think it's more than anything, it's techno. It lives in that world more than any other world, but it also has these other things. Also ambient. It definitely has plenty of ambient vibes. I don't think it's necessarily anything new for Richard Fearless. He's always flirted with these vibes. But I would argue that Death Mask is the closest brother slash sister to Satan's Circus. And for someone like myself, who considers Satan's Circus to be his best album, I welcome Death Mask with open arms. And I like his wordplay, Satan's Circus, Death Mask. I mean, just the verbiage itself kind of paints a darker picture. So before you even hear the music, your mind's already in a certain place. He does a good job with that, I think. But Death Mask is excellent. I think it's his best album since Satan Circus, and arguably, other than Satan Circus, his best album. I love it when Richard Fearless just focuses on what he wants to create without other singers, without other vibes and energies coming in. It's just him. And he's so good at what he does. It's been a long time coming, obviously almost a decade. You know what? Let me look this up. Just to be accurate, let me look up and see when Transmission came out. I feel like it was 2016, but yes, 2016. So 9 years ago. It's been 9 years. He also put out a 12-inch earlier this year, While My Machines Gently Weep, which is on the album. That came out with no fanfare, at least very little fanfare that I knew of. Came out earlier this year. It had While My Machines Gently Weep, but then it also has a B-side that did not end up on the album. Machines Gently Weep is on the album. It's the same version that came out on the 12-inch. But the 12-inch has a B-side that's excellent, that's not on the album. Highly recommend picking that up. It's a good, you know, brother sister piece to the Death Mask album. I think it's essential to have, actually. But yes, Death Mask to my ears is very much a industrial flavored techno album. It's a hard-hitting, beat-driven, rhythmic oddity, like a lot of what Richard Fearless does. And I highly recommend picking this up. It sounds really good, man. And it's 9 cuts. Let me look up the track listing here. It's 9 cuts. The songs are all like 7, 8, 9 minutes long. So they're not just these short little vignettes, It's like a double album that's full of music and it's all excellent. I feel like the album just builds too. It gets better and better and better. God, I love albums like that. Richard Fearless has a tendency to do that too. He'll start an album really strongly and then he'll mix in these different vibes, and then the last 2 or 3 songs will just hammer it home. He's always been really good about that. And Death Mask is no different. I'm looking at the track listing here. I mean, the last 4 cuts, Roy's and Dub, Robin's Ghosts, Your Love, and Death Mask. Mm, so good, man. Again, those of you who like industrial and dark wave and techno and ambient music, if you like all that stuff, you need to hear this album. If you like one of those genres, you should still check this album out. I think it's got a lot to offer, but it's nasty. It's just nasty, dirty, gritty techno music to me. And Fearless has always done that. But he's always flirted with it with his albums. He'll put like one or two cuts in there that sound like that, and then the rest of them will be these different vibes. Death Mask is just wall to wall banging techno, man. And when I say banging, I just mean rhythmically. So it's not like super minimal, like, like Mark Broom, Steve Bicknell, Adam Bear type banging techno. It's industrial, complicated techno that has a lot of other elements to it, but the beat is always there. Check it out. And if you don't know Death in Vegas, go listen to Death in Vegas anyway. There's so much music to explore. His albums, his 12 inches and his remixes are also very much worth seeking out. I really am a fan of Richard Fearless. And it didn't dawn on me until I got Death Mask that I've been buying this dude's records for nearly 30 years, and he's never disappointed me. In fact, I have the utmost respect that he does records like Death Mask. I feel like he could have kept making albums like the Cantino sessions where he brings in these, megastar singers and they sing and he does this psychedelic rock thing. But I always felt like Richard Fearless's true identity was like dance culture. That's where he came from. And Death Mask is proof positive of that. And I think in the last 10, 15, even 20 years, he's really dedicated himself to dance culture. That is the world he comes from. That is the world he's dedicated to. And his music, it's hard to find such a deeply rhythmic techno music that's so nuanced. Generally, it tends to be very minimal. And there's nothing wrong with that. But most techno is very minimal. It's very dedicated to that one aspect of music. Not with Fearless. He makes deeply rhythmic techno music, but it also has all of these other elements attached to it and beautiful melodies and things that you just don't normally find in techno music. So, as a huge fan of techno music and someone who has loved electronic music my whole life, Death Mask is one of the better albums I've heard this year. In our year 2025. It's one of the best albums I've heard this year. And I can't recommend it enough. And I can't recommend Richard Fearless enough. Go check this dude out. He's got plenty of albums and 12 inches and remixes and productions that are all worth your time. I've never heard of one single boring thing that Richard Fearless has ever done. The dude is a star. Longtime fan of this guy. Go pick up Death in Vegas, Death Mask. I don't think you'll be disappointed. And if you do, let me know what you think. If you've never heard Death in Vegas, go check it out and definitely let me know what you think. I would love to know what you think if you've never heard Death in Vegas. Something tells me most people watching this, you probably know Death in Vegas. I'd like to know either way what you think. I'm loving Death Mask. And again, the album just kind of dropped. I wasn't expecting it, just like the 12 inch that came out earlier this year. It just kind of showed up. Hey, there it is. I'm happy to have it. I'm happy that Richard Fearless exists. I'm happy that he keeps pumping out great music. Thank you, Richard Fearless. I appreciate you. And I hope the rest of you appreciate him as well. Death Mask. I will talk to you later.